Good afternoon and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story this hour. Scared and exposed as the deadly novel coronavirus claims over 2,233 lives. China is grappling to contain the outbreak, but data mistrust is increasing. Beijing has yet again changed the coronavirus counting method. The number of COVID-19 cases in Hubei province dropped sharply after China yet again changed the way it officially reports the number of infections. Today, Hubei, in its daily tally, confirmed 115 new virus deaths. There are more than 75,000 confirmed cases around the world. This is the second revision in a month. The changes are feeding growing suspicion over official data from China. No official explanation has been given for the sudden decline in figures. However, the sharp drop in numbers comes a day after new national guidelines advised the province to only report two numbers in its overall count, which is confirmed and suspected cases. So what's going on with China's coronavirus case and death numbers? This is not the first time that China has changed its counting methodology. Prior to this, on the 13th of February, China reported a drop in the number of new cases of the deadly coronavirus. Hopes were raised that the outbreak might be slowing down. But a day later, Hubei abruptly announced that there had been nearly 15,000 new cases overnight. The government then pointed out that the outbreak didn't suddenly get worse. The authorities had simply changed the way that they reported cases in order to allow more people access to treatment faster. Now, questions are compounding on China's counting method, the shifting classification guidelines, the lack of clarity, and yet another recalculation of the contours of crisis. So can the world rely on the numbers coming out of China? For the latest updates, we are being joined by our correspondent Bruce Harrison, coming to us live from Hong Kong. Good afternoon to you, Bruce. Now, there is anger mounting among many in Hong Kong. The criticism over Carrie Lam not completely shutting the borders with the mainland China, and also the administration's seeming uncoordinated handling of the situation.
That's right. And Carrie Lam's government has been under fire since last summer when the anti-government protests broke out. So she's not a very popular individual in Hong Kong. She wasn't to begin with. And yes, she's refused to fully shut down the border. That has led to a number of demonstrations in Hong Kong asking her to do just that, as well as not locating certain quarantine facilities throughout the city. The Hong Kong government selected about a week ago 18 different sites to quarantine individuals coming back from the mainland before they can reintegrate with society. And that set off a number of angry demonstrations because people here do fear that this could become more of a community spreading disease. Outside of that citywide quarantine effort, the government right now has also placed a number of people coming back from the Diamond Princess in the northeast part of the city to quarantine for 2 weeks after they rode on that ship, which was highly infected. That's also been slightly controversial, not only trying to get them home, but the location of that quarantine facility as well. So, yeah, the city's also scrambling to produce more masks, create more protective gear. Carrie Lam's putting forward a lot of money to take care of that, but a lot of people think the efforts are coming too late.
Now, there's also been a sudden spike of cases in South Korea. What is this being attributed to?
The numbers are jumping rapidly in South Korea. If you go to the southeast part of the country, a city called Daegu, where I visited many times, it's just about an hour north of the major port city of Busan, and a church-going woman in her early 60s apparently spread the virus to a number of congregation members at this church known as Shincheonji, and now dozens have tested positive for the virus, and it has spread beyond the church within the city of Daegu, and that has just skyrocketed the numbers of confirmed cases in South Korea, and the government there has suggested they may not be able to control this as well as they hoped. I think there's a growing fear in the southern part of the Korean peninsula about how far this spread could go.
China has changed the parameters for a second time in just about 10 days. Now, this certainly creates a trust deficit in the numbers that China is reporting.
Yeah, we've seen another switch in the methodology to test. What they've basically done is narrow the scope of testing methods. They eliminated chest scans. A lot of critics of Beijing suggested this was a way to decrease the number of confirmed cases, create a better look for China as it deals with this situation. But what we saw today was a spike in numbers, and we're seeing that there are hundreds of cases being reported throughout prisons in Hubei province, a sign that this disease spreads very easily in confined spaces. It's unclear exactly what China is trying to do by trying to hone in on the proper testing method, because they haven't given a reason. But if they were looking to decrease numbers, like I said, it hasn't worked. We're seeing a spike again in Hubei province, as well as through other parts of the mainland.
Thank you, Bruce. That is our correspondent, Bruce Harrison, coming to us live from Hong Kong for all the latest on the coronavirus. Now, the coronavirus outbreak has hit airlines, especially those in the Asia-Pacific region. Global aviation body has warned that carriers will suffer unprecedented losses due to travel restrictions as the disease continues to spread well beyond China. Now, according to the International Transport Association, globally, airlines will lose a whopping $29.3 billion in revenue. Carriers in the Asia-Pacific region are slated to bear the bulk of this loss. Out of the total $29.3 billion, nearly $27.8 billion in loss will be incurred by Asia-Pacific carriers. The travel restrictions are expected to lead to a 13% full year loss of passenger demand, and Asia-Pacific carriers, in fact, Chinese carriers will lose $12.8 billion in revenue in the domestic market alone. The aviation body warns of further loss in the industry if COVID-19 spreads to more countries. Several international airlines have restricted or altogether halted flight operations to China in the wake of the coronavirus outbreak.